Ganchish Stakat Johan. Tlingit Yochatangish to Achtuyak Eda. Shadini Ataya, when the dog cock. We online Kwani ka telephone Kwani has to eat gachti to she. So we have a whole bunch of things here on the table. And for those online and on the phone, we're going to help you out by naming them in English. We have a few newcomers to the class. We might not know how to say them, but we'll learn them. We're not going to say them yet in Tlingit. So what we have here, do you want to name them? Just in English?
A caribou, sea lion, thread, a rock, a porpoise, a sockeye, or just a salmon, a mallard, a mountain goat, a shark, I guess this is a doll sheep.
Yes. He has a scarf on.
A horse, a raven, a frog, a crab, a whale, a pig, a seal, an octopus, a moose, a raven, a yarn.
Eagle.
Oh, this is an eagle, not a raven. A killer whale, a brown bear, a wolverine, a black bear, a moose, a land otter, and a rabbit, and a chisel.
Okay. And the crab is a Dungeness crab, just so we're all clear. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Say the name of one of these things and clink it, and then you can have it. And if you have one, just wait until everybody has one. Oop.
Yes.
Okay. It was a little Haida-ish. We're going to let that go. That's just fine. I get to turn my phone.
Yes.
Okay, hold on. We got to take a time out. The TV's not going for some reason. Good. Okay. Uchta, did you hear all the things that we have on the table? Okay, so you're in, and Tantech, you're in. If you know the names of one of these things, just go ahead and holler.
Jungle. Jungle.
Mm-hmm.
Cheese.
Okay. Yakecha.
Sometimes death.
What's that?
Death for rabbit.
Oh, ach. Yeah, and so those of you on the phone, just keep note that these are the ones that you now have. You don't have to wait. Well, unless you have one, then you have to wait.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, Uchta, I think you are.
Gumdon, horse.
Okay, it's going inland. It's an inland horse. Okay, round two. Oh, okay, yeah. What's that? I got 3 hole punches, and I have staplers as well. A stapler as well. Okay, good.
Yeah.
They're both okay. Oh, yeah?
Kushta.
Did you, Wooshton, Wooshton. I do that to my kids all because they fight over the same thing. Share. It just means together. I'll figure out a better way to say share. And I'll say, hey, don't take it out of her hands. Wait. Did you,
I mean, Pete.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Am I able to think of it? Not the non-animal?
Oh, yeah, any of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Knock.
Everybody have two? No, okay. Wait, if you have two, you gotta wait.
Oh.
Sorry, if you have two, you gotta wait. Telephone, Kwani, do you guys need a hand, or Yishtuchka?
Tia.
Okay, well, you gotta get one more. Sorry, I don't know if I was really clear. The Tia has just been taken. What we have left, sorry that you guys, Gaudan. Since you guys cannot see, I gotta figure out how to let the phone see. We have a shark, beads, a wolverine, a sea lion, a moose, a frog, a dungeness, and a mountain sheep.
I'll have the sea lion, and that's 10.
Yep, pawn. Okay.
Oh.
He's with the qach.
Oh.
Okay.
Kawut.
Okay, kawut. So kawut is with kindachune. Now, does anybody know the names of any of these other things left? That's pretty good. Dasa. News is up there. I'll take him.
Is that Wanadu or is it?
No, Wanadu is a sheep. Like just the sheep. There's actually a lot of confusion between these three. A sheep, like you'd see in Navajo country, you know, like, and then a mountain sheep or a doll sheep, which you'd see on the mountain, and then a mountain goat, which you would also see on the mountain. I don't know the whole story. I believe Harold Jacobs knows the story. Missionaries were trying to translate something, and when people saw sheep, you know, because like there's lots of stories about like a shepherd and other things in the Bible. So they were like herding sheep, but then they translated it as mountain sheep, and then it was a really weird sort of image for Tlingit people because you don't herd them, at least I don't think you can. And then somehow also in the Orange Dictionary, Junmu and Taway got reversed for some reason. And I think they're related stories, I don't know. So Wanadu is the sheep that goes bah. Taway is in the mountain. That is.
Should we have that one?
Taway. Actually, I'm going to have, because we can only have two each, then we'll run out. And then the others will be our guests. Any others that we know? Zisk. Okay. And can somebody put him on maybe one of those chairs so we can all see him? Mm-hmm. What about these other three? That's the frog. And then two left. That's pretty good. Ow. And toots. Okay. That one gets actually regularly confused because there are certain clans that are really known for using certain animals as crests. And sometimes like people hear that crest or they see that crest so much affiliated with a clan that they think the clan name means the animal. So one of the things we're going to do maybe towards the end of this week, definitely by next week, is we're going to look at all of the clans and sort of a theory on how they're all related, how to pronounce them, what their name means if it's known, what crest they use, where they're at and what houses they use. It's a tremendous project that was undertaken by George Emmons, by Freddie De Laguna, Andy Hope, Tom Thornton, James Crippen, Jeff Lear, Richard Noah Dowenhauer, and then help from Kanan Bowsler, and then a lot of conversations with fluent elders, and all this knowledge comes from the elders and the knowledgeable folks that all of these people worked with, you know. But trying to get a handle on how clans are structured it's a big sort of a bulky thing to deal with, and it's a sensitive thing to deal with. But it's good to know how these clans sort of came into being, what their general origin stories are. And it's a delicate issue because you shouldn't go around telling other people where their clan is from. But at the same time, we've got to do a lot of patchwork because this used to be much more commonly known than it is now. I think now there's a lot of blank spaces about what clan individuals belong to, how clans relate to each other, and the origin of all of these clans. And so it's conversations that I've had with a lot of people who want to make sure that knowledge gets handed along. And so that's the reason why we're going to look at it. And even though it's written down, that doesn't mean that that's the only way it has to be. It's a theory on how it is. It's a living document. Same with a dictionary. A dictionary is a living document. So sometimes dictionaries might have slightly different interpretations. They might have mistakes. And the other thing is, if you're with some fluent speakers and you say, what is this called? And they give you something and you look it up in the dictionary and it's different, don't say, well, the dictionary says this, because I've seen students who do that, because sometimes the dictionary is wrong, or sometimes it's just called something different in a different location. So it's a really daunting task to try and document a language that is endangered because fewer people know the answers. And then, sometimes there's just things to keep an eye on, and, it's just bound to happen. Okay, any questions before we keep going? Okay. So we've learned a series of questions. Maybe I'll put our handout up on the screen. Maybe not. No, we don't need it. Okay. So the first thing we learned was dasaya, and then you'd answer with a we. Or let's actually let's put the shark over there. So there's a number of things that we've been talking about. One is these different questions we could be asking, and these different responses we can get. So if we say dasaya, what is the answer sound? Like if I was saying twos, right? If I was holding this dasaya, twos away. So it's blank away. And then we did das away. So if you were all holding a gishu, so you all had a gishu, das away, you would say gishu aya. Right, and then the other ones we learned, blank. If I said tus akya, so it's, now you've got one or two. You can say or type. and blank away. And similarly, we say blank away, and then the answer is either or blank yeah. So then next came gusu. So if I say gusu tus, wait. And then if I say, if you're all holding this, I say gusu zis, you would say yadu. We may have just lost the online folks. Wait.
The internet's so lights come up.
Yeah, okay. We just lost power. We're okay. The apocalypse. Okay, so what really we're learning, these are really having to do with here and there. Okay, and then we also did, what did we do after that? Dasa ejibu. You still had this, your answer would be zisk jibu. And then we did so if I have dasa jibu, the answer would be chi. Oops. Blank. And then if I did so now we've got one more. So there's let's say he has Intakwasi Sao Dasa Dujiwu. Sao with the entity. So with this series of questions and answers, you see there's something different that's changed. So what we're doing is we're learning these little phrases, and we're starting to do fill in the blank, and then also here's a couple things that changed. Right? So let's we've got a handle on these ones. But one thing I would say, there are 3 types of questions that we are asking so far. Can you identify what those 3 types of questions are? Well, we're starting to get into that. But there's a whole bunch of these questions that are kind of doing the same thing, and there's really another one. Well, none of these involve verbs yet. We're going to get to our first verb today. And this first verb, well, we've had a couple of websites. We're not drilling those. All right.
Okay. These ones are ya and wet, and these are
So we've got the ya and the win, and then there's the you on there. Well, if we look here, we've got dasa, 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 dasa. So they're what questions? Right? What do you have? What is this? What is that? And then we've got gusu. There's a second type of question. Where is? Then we've got the get, which is sort of there. But the get turns it into the yes or no question. So these are the ways we're learning how to ask questions. So what we'll do right now. There's this other thing that we should know. Ha. And those of you online, this is an underlined K and an A. Ka. Everybody say ka.
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 This means end. Okay, so all of you have some things with you. Can you name them all?
Te, Pushta, Galdon, Tia, Han, Qas, Shimit,
Kabut.
Kabut, Al, King,
Tas.
Tas, Sa, Yan, He, Issue, what's it? Huge, Na, Who's, Jungle, Ye, Well, News.
Echa. Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to ask you is going to be two questions. And one is I have Nusk. Do I say Nusk?
News.
And I also have Taway.
Tawe.
Taway.
Tawe.
So I'm going to ask you two questions. Well, actually, I'm going to ask you three questions. So the first one I'm going to ask you is going to say, and make everybody hold your two things. So we have three. I don't know how that happened because I don't know how to count. That's how it happened. Okay. So you're going to hold your two things out clearly in your hand. All the phrases up there are in our book. And I'm going to say, and those of you online, Yesh Tuchta, you have Gaudan or Gamdan and Tiya. Kantech, you have Tan and Ach. And Shuwatin, you have Kindachunate and Kawut. Yeah. So, I'll ask you those three questions that are sort of right in the middle of the book. Dasa ejiwu.
Pushta, Te, Achjivu,
Dasa achjiwu.
Awe, News,
Dasa dujiwu.
Tahe, Dujivu,
Okay. Dasa ejiwu.
Tahe,
Dasa achjiwu.
Awe, News,
Dasa dujiwu.
Sa,
Dasa ejiwu. So, Dasa Sa. We're going to do both of them. You're going to say Sa, Ka, Tas. Okay. Ka. Dasa achjiwu. Taway. No, ejiwu. And then dasa dujiwu. Guj, ka, yai, dujiwu. Okay, okay. Dasa ejiwu.
Yai,
Dasa achjiwu.
Awe, News,
Dasa dujiwu.
Ishu ka
What's it? Okay. Dasa ejiwu. Dasa achjiwu. Dasa dujiwu. Okay. Dasa ejiwu. Oh, yeah. Jeez. Dasa achjiwu. Dasa dujiwu. Okay. Dasa ejiwu. Dasa achjiwu. Dasa dujiwu. Yes. Dujiwu. Dasa ejiwu. Dasa ejiwu.
Yes.
Yes. Or yeah. She said yeah. I totally accept it.
Which one? Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Dasa achjiwu. Ejiwu. Dasa dujiwu. Okay. Yes. Tujtla. Oh, 1 second. Kasi wakakwe. Kashuk. Kakisi. Okay. Let's see what you can. So, the person next to you, the D question, he is holding te and kushta. Dasa ejiwu.
Tia ka gaudan achdiwu.
Dasa achjiwu.
Tawe ka nusk ijiwu.
Dasa dujiwu.
Kushta ka te dujiwu.
Okay. And on the phone, the person who is D has kushta and te. I have tawe and nusk. Tanteich dasa ejiwu.
News. I forgot the last one.
Okay, so the first one is asking, what do you have?
Oh.
So then the answer, so it would be tan ka kach achjiwu. Then I would say dasa achjiwu. What do I have? And that would be
News. I don't remember the last name.
tawe
The way.
ejiwu. And then dasa dujiwu. This is the person right next to you. He has kushta and te.
Kushta. Ka. Te. Ejiwu.
Dujiwu.
Dujiwu.
Yes, yes. Gonna touch. So what we're doing here is we're dealing with these pronouns. These pronouns are in these sets. What page are those triangles on? Can you tell me? I'm going to open it up.
47.
Okay. Page 47 in your handout. I'm going to open that up here in a second. Okay, so I'm going to try to... Okay. Hold on. Okay, it's not going to let me share it, so just look on. So this is page 47. And so what we've been doing is practicing these pronoun triangles. So with these triangles, so we're going to talk to the moose. When we're talking to the moose, sometimes about the shark, if we look at him, he's going to chew our face off. Okay. So we don't want to look at him when we're talking about him. It's not gossip. We're praising. We're talking about how good he is, how awesome he is. Maybe what he was doing yesterday, swimming around. Okay, so the first thing is we have these two different pronoun triangles that we've been looking at. Okay, and the first one is independent. What are independent pronouns? And how are they used? Yeah. So as far as we're getting this first, second, and third person concept down. And as far as independent pronouns, they're not connected to anything grammatically. In Tlingit, they're probably the least used of all the pronouns. But the way that they would be used is if you knocked on the door, someone said, "Atusawe," and you said, "Khataya khone," it's me, right? Khone. So you could say it's me, it's you. It's used sometimes for like clarity or for like emphasis. I could say, "Wait, in Hachwani, it was you. I told you," right? Or if you're giving some speech and there's a bunch of clans that were there, and you'd say, "Stakat Yohan," right? All of y'all. Whoops, we didn't do plural ones yet. Dang. Okay. Sorry, forget the big speeches. So they're used to sort of say, here's something, or to provide some emphasis or clarity. Like in this class, if we did some of these question-answer things and I sent them around, and we were just going around the circle, I want to kind of break it up, then I might say, "Oh wait, ask him over there." So this is where we're seeing it. So let's just practice this. We got one figure for ourselves. Khat. We're talking to the moose, so everybody look at the moose. Those of you online, just like pick one thing to talk to and pick one thing in the room that you're talking about. Pretend it's a person or an animal, whatever it is. And so you're looking at that thing while you're having this conversation. Khat. 2 fingers pointing right at it. Wa'eh. 3 fingers pointing at the thing you're talking about, but now looking at it. Huh. Wa'eh. Huh. Khat. Wa'eh. Huh. Khat. Wa'eh. Huh. Now, everybody hold something. Now, and we'll say, Achjiwu-ah. Achjiwu-ah. Ehjiwu-ah. Ehjiwu-ah. jiwu What do we have? What do we all have in common? I guess he has. Okay, so everybody point at your nose or touch your nose. Aksha, isha, dusha, aksha. We're touching our head. Sorry. Dusha. Oops. Isha. Dusha. And what else do we have? Okay. I'm gonna touch. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna touch it. Just point at your eye. Akhwaq. Iwaq. Duwaq. So, and we see with the akhjiwu, dujiwu, how these things they shift, right? So, but it's the same sort of concept. Khat is to akh, I is, or wa'eh is to I, and do, or hu is to do. Boy, I'm not with it. Mama B game for that. So, how would we use possessive pronouns? What do you guys think? And Tlingit. Yeah, so we just use it to say, so what we've got going on there is, so everybody grab your hand. Akhjin. Akhjin. That means my hand, or if you were like a cat for some reason, it would be your paw, same word. But then there's a related but different term, akhji. Akhji. And this works sort of like the verb to have in English, but in Tlingit it's not a verb. And we just got to sort of get used to that idea, what's a verb, what isn't a verb, because it's a really big deal. Because, you know, in English you'd say I have it, I don't have it, I had it, I will have it. So you can conjugate it, right? And that's how English conjugates verbs. It's not really too hard. But in Tlingit, you say akhjiwu. Right? But if someone says, do you have taweh? Kesh akhji. I don't have it. So that N falls off, that W. What that W is a suffix that's saying to be located somewhere, kind of generically, and also we're not using a verb in the sentence. It's really how it functions. When we get into like more and more sentence structure, we'll see why that's so important. And so like to say he has hair, he has two eyes, he has, you know, if you say, you know, you can say you have body parts, or like, you know, I don't have any arms. Those would be verbs. You would not use the same thing. It's really interesting the more you sort of discover these things. Because somebody asked us, and there was a group of us for second language that was like, oh yeah, you probably say blah blah blah, and no, I said something completely different. Oh, that's awesome. So you know, so Tlingit, you're always going to be guessing, and you'll often be wrong, but you just got to keep guessing, because a lot of times you're going to be right too. So where else would you use a possessive pronoun? When you don't possess it, that's true. The other thing is if you're going to sort of own something, and we'll learn about like the rules behind it later, but something that's really interesting in Tlingit, if you said Wolverine, Lance, Lance's Wolverine. That tears him to pieces. But if you're going to use Tlingit grammar, speak English. So if you're going to speak English with Tlingit grammar, you would say Lance, Wolverine, Lance Wolverines. So the possessive marker would go on the object that's being possessed. Right? So that's just how Tlingit functions. And there's some rules behind it, but could you possess some of the things that are in here? Make them yours.
Ach, Ustani. Ach, baby. Ach, Kinderchulege. Ach, Kamude. Ach, Ani. Achu.
What about the moose?
Ach. Sisku.
Zisku. Ah, okay, let's choose. So then you get a possessive marker at the end that's really just a vowel. And what kind of vowel it is just changes with a few different things. We're not going to worry about it. But that's another place where we would use, I can think of a couple other things. Kinship terms. Achtla, itla, dutla, hatla, yitla, hastutla. I went plural again. Thanks. But in kinship terms, we can use them all the time. Right? In kinship terms, we can just stack them on, too. Like if you want to say, specify someone, like if I said, well, my great-grandfather, but you guys should know who he is so that you understand what clan he is. Then I'd say, Akli Kutain, Achtla, Du Ish, Du Kla Aya. Or Achtla, Du Ish Aya. So you can just kind of stack them. Achtla, Du Ish. And so you just, there's the ach, and then the du comes in. So it's like my father, his, or whatever it goes. So the other thing is in certain verbs, you're conjugating them using a possessive pronoun. It's pretty uncommon, but it's actually a lot easier to conjugate those ones, right? Want ach tuwasaku. Hin ach tuwasaku. I want water. Dana tuwasaku. Yeah. Do you want money? Okay. Or if you were sort of explaining, you say atradu tuwasaku. He wants food. Yay. Atradu tuwasaku. Yay. At Raven, he always wants food. So there we're conjugating using a possessive pronoun. That's pretty uncommon. So now we get to the subject pronouns. Okay? So, all right, that's my rule. But I'm trying this part of it. So within this 1, 2, 3. And we're going to start talking about the zero. The zero pronoun pops up in a number of places. So for Tlingit, there's a zero pronoun. There's also zero markers for a couple other things. So we're going to see them. We're just going to get comfortable with seeing them. We're not going to hear them. But the reason why we put them in there is so we remember that there's kind of something there. So the interesting thing, if our verb, which is on, which is that one on? I think it's on that same handout. Yeah, it's on page 52. So this is towards the end of our second handout. Those of you online, it's beginning Tlingit. It's on tlingit.info, both under resources and also under the beginning. I think there's like learning Tlingit or something, and beginning Tlingit. So on page 52, we get introduced to our first verb. The way we'll think about this verb is it's asking a question. So before we think about it too much, this is Nusk. So the question now, it's using the same structure that we've been sort of using quite a bit. Dasa iyatin. Everybody says
Dasa iyatin.
Dasa iyatin.
Dasa iyatin.
Nusk khatin.
Nusk
Nuskatin.
Nusk khatin.
Nuskatin.
Okay. So we'll just send this one around. Dasa iyatin. 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 Yeshtuchka dasa iyatin.
Nuskatin.
Tantech dasa iyatin.
Party.
Shubutin dasa iyatin.
Nuskatin.
Okay. So now it's conjugating a little bit differently. So we're talking now. We got to throw one more thing in the mix. I'm putting the tawe over near the shark. Okay. So now we're introducing one more person in the conversation. We are talking to the moose about who sees tawe. We're talking to Zisk about who sees tawe. Okay? So talking to moose, you would say tawe khatin. Tawe khatin. Now, if we're talking to moose, whatever reason, I don't know why we would say this, but we're going to tell him what he sees. Maybe he's like, maybe it's just emerging from the bushes, and he says, Dasachatin. What do I see? It's kind of a weird question, but now you would tell him, Tawe iyatin. Tawe iyatin. Tawe iyatin. And now if both of us are watching this tooth, and he obviously sees something and he's going to go maybe eat it, and Zisk says, Dasa yatin, we would say, we're talking to the moose about what the shark sees. Tawe yatin. Tawe yatin. Tawe yatin. Tawe yatin. So going back to our triangles. Khat wa eh hu. Ach eh du. We're going to pull these subject pronouns out, but they are always attached to verbs. They don't exist on their own. That's why we write them with hyphens after the end. That means this is attached to a verb. But we're just going to use them. Cha, eh. And nothing, right? So there's the nothing. So if we're going to use English, speak English using Tlingit grammar, we would say, I see it, you see it, sees it. And so there's no he or she, right? And actually, it would be I see it, you see it, see it. Like you wouldn't say sees. That's just the way English conjugates.
This is the subject, so this is the subject.
This is whoever's doing the verb.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the doer of the verb. And since it's Tlingit, we should do the object first, but we'll do the object next when we start doing what is it called, what are you called, what's my name, kind of thing. So, and this is important for Tlingit, is that there's a zero pronoun, right? So it would be like, I'm talking, you're talking, talking. Right? We get used to that zero, it goes back into its state. The other thing is we start to see the way that Tlingit changes, right? This is what we call morphology, where when things get near each other, they can start changing each other. The easy way to think about this is in English, sometimes when words come together, but it's kind of optional. Like you say can't instead of cannot, right? Or you could say cannot and cannot. So there's a cannot, can't. There's three ways to say it, but it's kind of optional. With Tlingit, when you start getting things near each other, there's no option. It will happen. And especially in verbs is where you're going to get it a lot. The other case is when nouns come together to form compound nouns for like place names and names of people and things like that. So we see yatin. The third person shows us that sort of natural form of the verb because it's a zero pronoun. Ya is the classifier. Teen is the root to see. Yatin. So we threw an I on the front. Nothing really strange has gone on. Yatin. But when we put cha in there, cha plus ya equals cha. Right? So that's what happens. Is two A's instead of the underline XA. So instead of going chayatin, it's a chatin. So this is the, and then we're going to get some others that are super funky when we get into, I think it's the chapter after this, when we're starting to look at weather, future verbs, and then how was it, how is it, these types of things, talking about the weather. All right, we got 5 seconds. Any questions? Everybody good? Melchish? Yeye kwa satin. Wushe garku satin. Yeah.